Was there a time when this hypothesis was real, Christian Horner in Ferrari? And in today's video, we are going to look at Christian Horner's own statements on how this situation could materialize. We need to see Ferrari's updates for the upcoming races. Let's go. See the statements about Toto Wolff about Red Bull's behavior in Canada, but not only that. Riccardo Patrese also weighed in on the situation at Ferrari and the drivers. We need to see Mercedes' intentions for the upcoming races, and also Norris's contract situation with McLaren. Before we start, if you like the videos on the channel, please leave a supportive like, and now let's get started right away. Christian Horner breaks his silence in the most direct manner possible. Ferrari approached me, but I never thought about leaving Red Bull. This statement uncovers a market backstory that has been hidden for months, as confirmed by the team principal. Exclusive interview with the Dutch newspaper The Telegraph. Yes, Ferrari tried. It's not the first time that Maranello targets a big name to change course, but this time it's about the number one of Red Bull, the man who built one of the most successful empires in recent Formula One history. Consider that Christian Horner in Red Bull has won 8 drivers' titles, 6 constructors' titles, 124 victories in 402 races. As a team manager, Christian Horner is a war machine. And he himself said no, thanks to Ferrari. But why? Why refuse such an opportunity? Horner explains that he feels part of a project, not just the manager. When he arrived at Red Bull, there were 380 people today. There are over 2,000, and he has experienced all this evolution from the inside. I've invested my life in this team, he says, and emphasizes one thing. His connection with the team is not just sports-related, but human and personal. Be cautious, as this comes at a sensitive time. Horner, in fact, has gone through turbulent months due to allegations of alleged harassment towards an employee. A situation that has shaken Red Bull from the inside. But even there, Horner's response is clear. Resigning was never an option, and no one around me ever thought it was necessary to do so. A clear message to those who wanted to see him out of the game. Horner doesn't budge for controversies, nor for the red sirens of Ferrari. But there's more. Behind this refusal is also a reflection on the future. Horner anticipates a challenging 2025 season as Red Bull's 2023 technical edge diminishes. McLaren is now the leading force, Mercedes has returned to winning, and the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile directive on front wings has upset all the balances. Yet, the English manager doubles down. We have the right people, and Max Verstappen remains our strength. So the question naturally arises, do you think? Did Horner do well to stay in Red Bull? Or could he have started a new era with Ferrari? If we look at it from Christian Horner's personal point of view, well, he did well to stay in Red Bull. He won world titles with Max Verstappen, 4 titles with Max, 4 titles with Seb, with Vettel in the past. In short, he built the history of Red Bull and is grateful for it, just as Red Bull is grateful to Christian Horner. And this is the real meaning of the continuity that Ferrari lacks. In fact, Ferrari, having changed so many team principles in the past, Vassor Binotto gets along well with some of these, has not been able to create that bond between team principal and team. Something that both Christian Horner in Red Bull and Toto Wolff in Mercedes have done. They feel tied to the team not only for economic reasons or results, but there is a personal bond that ties them to the team, and this in my opinion is the winning choice of those teams. Even Andrea Stella is now becoming very attached to McLaren for the continuity that he has given Zak Brown, and this is not something to underestimate. Because feeling part of a team is fundamental for a team principal, because he is more motivated to give his best and builds the team around himself. This is what Ferrari is missing, which should be done with Vassar also for the coming years. Or at least identify the key person of the project to whom to entrust the keys of the team. Then it's the job of this person who needs to surround themselves with competent people. As Wolff himself did with Andrew Chauvelin, who also had the courage to demote Mike Elliott. The move is far from obvious, and there are many examples supporting this idea. But we also need to talk about Riccardo Patrese's statements on Ferrari. In fact, in an interview with Resto del Carlino following Antonelli's first podium, Patrese speaks bluntly. Leclerc and Hamilton are not the problem. Charles is very fast, and Lewis is not on the back burner. The real trouble is that there's no car. We don't even know who designed it. A very harsh statement, but it accurately captures the technical uncertainty at Ferrari. A car like the SF25 that continues to behave unpredictably. Between qualifying errors, degradation, tires, lack of race pace, and components that break too easily. It shows us that the situation at Ferrari is anything but clear. And Vasseur, after the race, tried to restore order, but he too responded with annoyance to Hamilton's umpteenth call for new updates. Wasser said that if the car sets the record in the first sector, it's not a car problem. The words, which almost seem like an internal clash between drivers and management, show us once again that there is too much political fragility. The most serious fact is another one within the Ferrari 2025 project. Prix consistently highlights Ferrari's deep-rooted issues, citing a lack of vision and consistency within the organization. And there's not even a clear reference on who signed off on the project, and it's a heavy accusation, especially if it comes from an internal voice expert and above all Italian. Patrese is someone who has never raced in Ferrari, but he knows it very well and never speaks without reason. When he does, it indicates a serious problem. And on this, I would say we all agree that in Ferrari, the problem is not the drivers, but the car, and I agree more with Lewis Hamilton. The updates on the A are missing.
Sef 25, the
laundry also beginning of the season. It's better to bring the updates immediately, then focus on the 2026 project, than do the opposite. Also because bringing the updates now means you start developing on 2026 later. It's true, the structures that develop the two projects are separate, so the two operations can be done simultaneously,
but inevitably,
in my opinion, one of the two projects gets sacrificed. But I want to comment on some words that Wasser said after the race in Canada that went unnoticed. A rumor in the paddock suggests Wasser might leave Ferrari at year's end, to which the French team principal reacts with annoyance. And he stated, "When I signed for Ferrari, I knew that if anything went wrong, the blame would be mine. But it's unfair to see the names of my engineers in the newspapers as if they were numbers to be changed. They are people with families who come to the office on Monday and ask if it's true that I'm leaving." And then he tells a surreal anecdote. "Last year I read that we had hired a certain Balbo. I didn't even know what he looked like. I had to Google him. Meanwhile, my aerodynamicist, Diego Tondi, asked me if he had really been replaced." The message is clear. The press creates entropy, and entropy in Formula 1 makes you lose races. But Wasser tries to look ahead. "We will have updates before Silverstone." He declared it. Today, execution makes the difference, not technical development. According to him, even a 2/10 update is useless if the car is not used to its full potential. When we bring something new, it takes us 2 or 3 weekends to understand it. Often, we spend more time fine-tuning it than developing the car. He then discusses a critical factor, tires, which make the real difference today. Mercedes and Verstappen quickly grasp the situation, but we failed to do so. And if you make a mistake, the compound from Friday, your weekend is over even before it
starts. And
tires are crucial in Formula 1, especially with the introduction of the C6 compound in Canada. We've seen how many teams have made the qualifying time with the medium tire, so with the C5, even the tire wear in the race was not certain from the start. The graining developed was greater than expected. But it's not just a matter of tires, it's also a matter of internal kinematics within the car. So let's analyze this Ferrari in detail. The heart of the crisis is the SF25 project with the internal name 677A. Car that Ferrari has bet a lot on. New suspensions, new aerodynamic approach, but today it's clear something is not right.
The problem
is not just the rear suspension. Technical analysts write there are more serious congenital defects. One of the most radical choices was the front axle switch to the pull rod scheme to improve the aeromechanical interaction, which is fundamental with these wing cars. But apparently the results are not coming. On the onboard, it is clearly noticeable that the car doesn't enter the curve well, struggles in quick changes and always seems on the edge, with also a slight oversteer in progress. Claire Clement didn't say it openly. The updates are coming too slowly. McLaren changes the bottom and nose every 2 races. Ferrari is stationary.
The reason?
Before updating, you need to understand what's wrong. And in Maranello, it's not yet clear whether the problem is with the chassis, the suspension, or the underbody, or all 3. And this is where the most worrying part comes in. The SF25 performs well in computational fluid dynamics data, wind tunnels, and simulators at the factory, but not on the track. When a car is faster on paper but not in reality, you enter a very dangerous limbo. Ask Mercedes in 2022-2023 how it performed. Ferrari fears it has fallen into the same trap. A deceptive project like that of Brackley in those years, and at that point, every update risks being useless. The real dilemma is whether to continue or give up. In Maranello, one team is working on the 2026 car, while another is continuously developing the 2025 model to go and invest all the remaining budget cap. Ferrari knows that it might be pointless to continue developing for this year, but it wants to try anyway. Out of pride, out of duty, not to waste another season in mid-June, but do you think it's worth it? Does it really make sense to chase a dream that seems unreachable at the moment while McLaren, Red Bull and Mercedes itself are running away? This is the real question that needs an answer. But closing the Ferrari chapter, we also need to talk about the statements Toto Wolff made in New York at the premiere of the Formula 1 movie. Why did he comment on the Red Bull situation and the protest made to the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, interviewed in New York by Sky Sports Formula 1 on the occasion of the world premiere of the Formula 1 movie? Mercedes boss Toto Wolff did not mince words. What Red Bull did was petty, ridiculous, and embarrassing. Wolff explained that the protest arrived 2 hours after the end of the Grand Prix and recalled that Red Bull had already behaved in a similar way in Miami. In another similar case, then withdrawn, they pull out absurd clauses that only they call clauses, he said. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile should start paying attention. It was a clumsy and unlikely attempt to overturn the result. But beware, this frontal attack is not just a defense of Russell, it's a direct political attack on Red Bull. Wolff knows every word matters in the paddock. You race, win, and lose on the track, he said. This behavior is unworthy of a team that has won so much. It was simply embarrassing. And we are only at the beginning of this political war that could continue throughout the season. Looking at the performances of Red Bull with Verstappen and Mercedes on the other side. And speaking of Mercedes, we see it transformed after the race in Canada. It seems like a Mercedes that can fight up front for victories. In fact, until a few weeks ago, Mercedes seemed still far away. Problems with race pace, doubts about the power unit, and lack of solid results. But everything changed in Montreal. Russell's victory was no fluke. The V16 made a technical comeback, surprising everyone after 3 underwhelming GPs. The expectations were a podium finish. But no one expected both cars to place in the top 3. Norris's withdrawal also helped. 3 factors made the difference in Canada. A track with few wide turns and many brakes, non-abrasive, very smooth asphalt, and a focus on longitudinal grip and not lateral. In short, Mercedes hit the mark here. The V16 worked better than McLaren, Ferrari, and even Red Bull in all traction sections. And above all, it managed to perfectly exploit the surface temperature of the tires, a key parameter in Montreal and one that Mercedes has always struggled with this season. But the real ace up their sleeve was something else. The new rear suspension of Mercedes, introduced at Imola but thoroughly tested, only now it has been put on hold for 2 races for data collection. And now it's optimized on the 7-post rig dynamometer and is based on a reworked, more efficient push-rod scheme. In short, an update that was born calmly, not thrown blindly onto the track, and the results have been seen. This resulted in a better balance with the rear load and a cleaner Mercedes traction coming out of the curve. But the real question is, was it just a perfect race for Mercedes, or has Mercedes really come back to fight for the top? Also at Silverstone, Spa, and other tracks we'll see later. And if Mercedes managed to handle the rear load well, and also the consumption of the rear tires, on the other hand, we have Red Bull, who had a lot more trouble managing the tires. In fact, there was high degradation in the first 2 stints to manage carefully, and the RB21 was unstable in low-speed sections. As Verstappen himself declared, we opted for shorter stints. Aggressive, but I couldn't push as I wanted. And in the end, I spent the race looking more in the mirrors than ahead. Red Bull has realized that a technical turnaround is needed, and in fact, the updates are coming. From June to July, the RB21 will undergo floor modifications for aerodynamic optimization following Technical Directive 018 and changes to enhance tire management. The hope is that these updates will allow Max to have a more consistent car. Why is Red Bull relying solely on his talent today? Tsunoda is not performing and will likely be questioned at the end of the season. The MCL39 is the top car of 2025, but Montreal revealed a limitation. It didn't perform well with these temperatures. It suffered more than expected in the dry lap and also on the aerodynamic flexibility places of 018. Well, it was less effective. And Verstappen has an innate hunger. In fact, he said, "I want to fight until the end. The title is still possible." But to achieve it, Red Bull must react immediately. We have seen how Verstappen wasn't there. The premiere of the Formula 1 movie in New York, and he stated, "This Formula 1 is too much show. I just want to race. That's why Max's choice is to drive a Grand Touring 3 at Spa." It's no coincidence. Vesta adores endurance races and has always dreamed of competing at Le Mans and Nürburgring. As others enjoy the premiere, Max prepares for his post-Formula 1 career, sending another strong signal. Obvious, and then there is another fundamental theme, namely the mental endurance of Norris Oscar with Mark Webber at his side, former Red Bull, former winner, and strong driver. Lando is alone, and Nico Rosberg has offered him mental support.
But Norris
did not respond. Lando still has to understand his weak points, Rosberg said. And maybe this is a missed opportunity because in a world championship that is played on nerves, every mistake is very costly. And Andrea Stella sets the priority to win both titles. McLaren can't afford to lose points due to internal mistakes, and this is a clear criticism of Norris's behavior in Canada. Order, clarity, and clear leadership are needed. I agree with Andrea Stella's statements. Because with Red Bull on the rise, as well as Mercedes, McLaren needs to try to optimize and bring home as many points as possible. And Norris didn't do it in Canada with a trivial mistake. And this weighs on the World Constructors' standings, even though it is currently still dominated by McLaren at most. Also watch the drivers' standings as Norris and Piastri fight at the front. And Max could take advantage of this and recover important points also in view of the second part of the season. The very last topic we need to talk about is the race in Thailand. Why did Domenicali intervene on this? The Thai government has officially approved the bid to host a Formula One Grand Prix in Bangkok with a 5-year contract starting from 2028. The budget is impressive. $1.2 billion already allocated, a huge figure that shows a clear intention to enter the calendar at all costs. This was announced by the Thai Minister of Tourism, Sorawong Tiantong, who broke the news at a press conference. To bolster the candidacy, Stefano Domenicali, Formula One Chief Executive Officer, visited Bangkok recently to assess the proposal, engaging in direct discussions. And that's not all. Alex Albon, the Thai driver for Williams, also met with the Thai Prime Minister and stated, "It's nice to see how serious they are," Albon commented. "I saw a draft of the project and it looks really promising." So Formula One is increasingly looking to Asia to expand its audience and tap into new markets. Singapore, Japan, China, and now perhaps even Thailand. Well, the circus is turning into a strategic hub for Liberty Media. And Bangkok has all the political interest, huge budget, home driver, an iconic capital for a potential city circuit said to be spectacular. Obviously, the goal remains for 2028, but be aware that the Formula One season already has 24 races, and Domenicali clearly said that it will not go beyond that. So, to make room for Thailand, will some European Grand Prix have to be skipped or put into rotation? And for Thailand, this is a strategic showcase for the country's future.
However, obviously,
It will be to the detriment of some European race. Tell me in the comments what you think about all the topics we covered in the video. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any Formula One news. Check out related videos from Rastaduto. See you next time!